The forest was a cathedral of shadows, its ancient trees clawing at a sky bruised with storm clouds. A bone-chilling wind sliced through the ravine, carrying the scent of damp earth and something darker, something metallic, like blood. Officer Daniel Harper stumbled over a root, cursing under his breath as he steadied himself against a moss-slick boulder. His German shepherd, Shadow, was 10 yards ahead, a sleek silhouette moving with predatory focus through the underbrush. The dog's ears were pinned back, his nose low to the ground, and every muscle in his body screamed purpose. Harper's radio crackled, the voice of Ranger Chief Elena Voss cutting through the static. "Harper, you still with Shadow? He's veering off-grid again." "Yeah," Harper panted, his breath fogging in the frigid air. "He's locked onto something. I've never seen him like this." Shadow froze at the base of a gnarled oak, his hackles rising like a ridge of black thorns along his spine. A low, guttural whine escaped his throat, a sound Harper had never heard in their 2 years together. "Shadow, what is it?" Harper called, his voice tight with unease. The dog didn't move, didn't acknowledge him. Instead, Shadow's gaze was fixed on a clearing just beyond the tree line, where the air seemed to hum with an unnatural stillness. Harper pushed forward, his boots sinking into the mud, and broke through the undergrowth into the clearing. His heart stopped. There, chained to a massive pine, was a body slumped, bloodied, lifeless. The man's Forest-Air VYC uniform was shredded, his chest a canvas of VYC stab wounds. Chains looped around the tree, binding his arms in a cruel embrace. Harper's stomach churned as he radioed in, his voice shaking. "This is Harper. We got a body. Half a mile east of Grid D. It's bad." But it wasn't the corpse that sent a shiver down Harper's spine. It was Shadow. The dog, trained to remain stoic at death scenes, broke every protocol. He crept toward the body, a plaintive whimper rising from his chest, and gently nuzzled the dead man's hand. Harper's command, "Shadow, back," was ignored. The dog pressed closer, his body trembling, his eyes glistening with something Harper could only describe as grief. In that moment, Harper knew this wasn't just a case. This was personal. The fluorescent lights of the Pine County Sheriff's Department buzzed like trapped insects as Harper packed his gear at 4:45 a.m. The station was a tomb at this hour, the silence broken only by the soft clink of Shadow's tags as the German shepherd sat at attention by his side. Shadow's dark eyes tracked Harper's every move, unblinking, as if the dog could sense the weight of the day ahead. At 6 years old, Shadow was a legend in the department. His cadaver detection skills were uncanny, borderline supernatural. Last summer, he'd found a drowning VY Tim's body wedged beneath a riverbed boulder, missed by sonar and divers. Months before that, he'd led search teams to a shallow grave in a wildfire-ravaged valley, where no one else had thought to look. Harper scratched behind Shadow's ears, earning a single, restrained thump of the dog's tail. "Ready for the grind, partner?" he asked. Shadow's response was a steady stare, his composure almost regal. Unlike other K9s, who might bound with restless energy, Shadow carried himself with a quiet dignity that Harper had come to rely on. Their bond had formed instantly when they were paired 2 years ago, but Harper often felt there was something unknowable about Shadow, a depth of intelligence that went beyond training, as if the dog carried secrets he could never share. His phone buzzed, shattering the quiet. A text from Sheriff Margaret Cole. "My office. Now. Missing person case." Harper clipped Shadow's lead to his harness, the dog falling in a step with fluid precision as they gated the station's dim hallways. Cole was waiting behind her desk, her face etched with worry. "Forest Ranger Nathan Caldwell, 38, vanished during a patrol," she said, sliding a file across the desk. "Experienced guy, knows the terrain like the back of his hand. Didn't check in for 4 days. His Jeep was found at Blackthorn Trailhead, but no sign of him." Harper skimmed the file. Caldwell was a respected ecologist, a 12-year veteran of the Forest-Air VYC with a passion for protecting endangered species. "Any leads?" he asked. "Nothing solid," Cole replied. Rangers searched the area, but it's 50,000 acres of rugged wilderness. There's a complication, though. Caldwell had been clashing with local hunters-poachers, mostly. He filed complaints against a guy named Marcus Reed, a repeat offender with a rap sheet for assault and illegal trapping. Harper glanced at Shadow, who sat alert, his ears twitching at the mention of Caldwell's name. It was a fleeting moment, but Harper caught Ida's spark of recognition in the dog's eyes. He frowned, recalling the vague details of Shadow's transfer to the K-9 unit. The dog had come from a Forsair VYC employee who'd surrendered him, citing Shadow's extraordinary detection skills as too valuable for a personal pet. The paperwork hadn't named the handler, only mentioning a reluctant parting. Could it be connected? "We need Shadow's nose," Cole said, snapping Harper back to the present. "If anyone can find Caldwell, it's him." The Blackthorn trailhead was a hive of active VY when Harper and Shadow arrived at dawn. Rangers huddled over maps, their faces drawn with exhaustion. Chief Ranger Elena Voss greeted Harper with a firm handshake, her eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. Last confirmed sighting of Caldwell was Monday, inspecting illegal snares in the northern quadrant, she said, pointing to a topographic map. His jeep was parked here, but the trails splinter in every direction. "We've got nothing." Harper knelt, offering Caldwell's field jacket to Shadow. The dog inhaled deeply, memorizing the scent with a focus that bordered on obsession. Voss raised an eyebrow. "He's intense today." "He's always intense," Harper said, but he couldn't shake the feeling that Shadow's drive was different this time, personal, almost possessive. He unclipped the lead and gave the command, "Find him, Shadow." The German shepherd launched into action, his nose skimming the earth as he wove through the trailhead. Rain had battered the area for days, turning the ground to sludge and threatening to erase any trace of Caldwell. Yet Shadow moved with relentless purpose, his grid pattern tight and methodical. 30 minutes in, he froze, head snapping up to test the air. Without warning, he veered sharply west, abandoning the planned search area for a narrow RAVY choked with ferns and fallen logs. "He's got something," Harper shouted, scrambling to keep pace as Shadow plunged deeper into the forest. Voss and 2 rangers followed, their breaths ragged in the thinning air. The terrain grew treacherous steep, slick with mud, and shrouded in a canopy so dense it swallowed the sunlight. Shadow's pace quickened, his movements no longer calculated but driven, as if drawn by an invisible thread. "This isn't a trail anyone would take," Voss panted, ducking under a low branch. "It's too rough, even for Caldwell." Harper didn't respond, his eyes locked on Shadow's tail as it vanished around a massive cedar. He'd never seen the dog like this, his usual precision replaced by a near-frantic urgency. The air grew colder, carrying the faint, coppery tang of decay. Shadow's hackles rose, and a low, mournful whine escaped him. Harper's pulse spiked. He'd heard Shadow bark, growl, even whimper in training, but this sound was different, raw, almost human. They broke into a clearing, and there it was, the body. Nathan Caldwell, chained to a pine, his uniform soaked in blood. The chains were cruelly tight, biting into his wrists, and his chest bore the marks of a frenzied attack. Harper's knees buckled as he radioed the find, his voice barely steady. "We've got Caldwell. He's gone. Multiple stab wounds. Chained to a tree." The rangers froze, their faces pale, but it was Shadow's reaction that seared itself into Harper's memory. The dog approached the body, ignoring Harper's command to stay back. He pressed his nose to Caldwell's hand, whimpering softly, his body shaking with an emotion Harper couldn't name. When Harper tried again, "Shadow, back," the dog didn't budge. Instead, he lay beside the body, his head resting on Caldwell's lap, as if keeping VY Gill. Voss's voice was barely a whisper. "What the hell is he doing?" Harper's mind raced. He'd seen Shadow locate dozens of bodies, always with clinical detachment. This was something else: grief, loyalty, love. A technician approached, carefully searching Caldwell's pockets. He pulled out a wallet and flipped it open. Nathan Caldwell, Forestier VYC, he confirmed, holding up an ID. The photo showed a man in his late 30s, with sharp green eyes and a quiet smile. Harper's breath caught. Something clicked. Shadow came from the Forestier VYC, Harper said slowly, the pieces falling into place. His original handler gave him up because his skills were too good to waste. They said it was a hard choice, that the handler and Shadow were close. He knelt beside the dog, holding the ID where Shadow could see it. Shadow's reaction was immediately soft, keening whine, his nose brushing the photo. Voss's eyes widened. You're saying Caldwell was Shadow's first handler? Harper nodded, his throat tight. It explains everything. Shadow didn't just find a body. He found his friend. The recovery team worked in hushed silence, their movements careful to preserve the scene. Shadow remained by Caldwell's side until the last moment, only stepping back when Harper gently coaxed him away. As the medical examiner prepared to move the body, Shadow's demeanor shifted again. His grief gave way to a razor-sharp focus. He circled the tree, nose working frantically, then froze, his body rigid with alert. He's got something, Harper said, recognizing the posture. Before anyone could react, Shadow bolted, tearing through the underbrush toward the northern edge of the clearing. Harper sprinted after him, the lead nearly slipping from his grip. He's tracking. The trail led them up a brutal incline, through thorny brambles and across a shallow creek. Shadow never wavered, his nose locked onto a scent that had served VY ved days of rain and wind. The Rangers struggled to keep up, their radios crackling with updates. After nearly a mile, Shadow slowed, approaching a small campsite tucked against a granite outcrop. The signs of human presence were unmistakable. A smoldering fire pit, scattered food wrappers, and a patch of flattened grass where someone had slept. Shadow circled the site, then stopped beside the fire pit, his body taut. Harper knelt, following the dog's gaze to a cluster of stones. One was slightly askew, the soil beneath it disturbed. He brushed the dirt aside and froze. There, half buried, was a hunting knife, its blade crusted with dried blood. The handle was intricately carved, unmistakable. He found the murder weapon, Harper said, his voice thick with awe. Through all this weather, he tracked it down. The forensics team arrived, carefully bagging the knife. Preliminary tests confirmed blood on the blade, consistent with Caldwell's wounds. A partial fingerprint was VY Seibel on the handle, raising hopes of a match. Harper looked at Shadow, who sat motionless, his job done. The dog's composure was extraordinary, especially given the emotional weight of the find. Back at the station, the EVY Denke sparked a frenzy of active VY tie. Harper pored over Caldwell's file, noting the repeated complaints against Marcus Reed. The poacher had been a thorn in Caldwell's side for years, his illegal traps threatening protected wildlife. Reed's priors included VY Olin outbursts, and Caldwell's reports had led to hefty fines and a confiscated rifle. Motive was clear: revenge. A call from the lab confirmed the breakthrough. The fingerprint on the knife belonged to Reed. Blood tests were still pending, but the case was tightening. Surveillance footage placed Reed's truck near Blackthorn Trailhead the day Caldwell vanished, and a grainy image showed him Leah VY in the area that night. Harper's jaw clenched. They had him. Dusk cast long shadows as the tactical team surrounded Reed's remote cabin. Harper and Shadow waited behind a stand of pines, the dog's body coiled with tension. The SWAT team moved in, their shouts echoing. Sheriff's Department. Search warrant. A crash came from the cabin's rear, followed by a radio alert. Suspect fleeing out the back. Reed burst through the door, a backpack slung over his shoulder, sprinting for the forest. Harper didn't hesitate. He unclipped Shadow's lead and gave the command, "Apprehend." Shadow exploded forward, a blur of muscle and focus. Reed glanced back, his face twisting in panic as the dog closed the gap. "Stop! Police!" Harper yelled, his weapon drawn. Reed ignored him, but it didn't matter. Shadow leaped, striking Reed's back and sending him sprawling into the dirt. "Marcus Reed, "You're under arrest for the murder of Nathan Caldwell," Harper said, cuffing the man as he gasped for breath. Reed's eyes locked on his shadow, and a flicker of fear crossed his face. That's his dog," he muttered, almost to himself. In the interrogation room, Reed sat hunched, his hands cuffed. Detective Sarah Nguyen laid out the EVY denke, the knife, the fingerprint, the blood, the footage. Reed's defiance crumbled. "I didn't mean to kill him," he mumbled, his voice breaking. "He kept shutting down my traps, costing me thousands. I just wanted to scare him, rough him up. But he fought back and things got out of hand." As Reed confessed, a commotion erupted outside. "K9 loose," crackled over the radio. Harper's heart sank. Shadow had somehow escaped the secure K9 area. Before anyone could stop him, the dog barreled into the interrogation room, his eyes locked on Reed. In a flash, Shadow leaped, knocking Reed from his chair. His jaws clamped onto Reed's arm, a snarl ripping from his throat. "Shadow, release!" Harper shouted, grabbing the dog's collar. For a moment, Shadow held on, his grip unrelenting. Then, slowly, he obeyed, backing away with blood on his muzzle. Reed screamed, clutching his arm. "That dog's a monster! He tried to kill me." The fallout was immediate. Shadow was placed in isolation, and Reed was treated for deep lacerations. Sheriff Cole delivered the grim news. Reed's demanding Shadow be put down. Says he's a danger. Protocols clear 9S who attack without command face euthanasia. Harper's stomach twisted. "He broke the case, Sheriff. Found the body, the weapon, tracked Reed. He was protecting Caldwell's memory." Cole's face softened, but her voice was firm. "He attacked a cuffed suspect. That's a line we can't ignore." The disciplinary hearing was held the next morning, the conference room packed with officers, rangers, and legal counsel. Shadow sat calmly, secured by a neutral handler, his eyes never vying Harper. Testimonies piled up, Shadow's flawless record, his unmatched skill, the emotional toll of finding his former handler. Nguyen revealed a bombshell. Reed had confessed fully after the attack, admitting premeditation. "Seeing that dog broke him," she said. He said Shadow knew what he'd done. After a tense deliberation, the board returned. K9 Officer Shadow VY OLAT Protocol, Chief Jenkins said. But given his error, VYC, and the unique circumstances, we're granting probation. 3 months of retraining, and Officer Harper will complete advanced handler certification. Relief flooded Harper. As the room cleared, Voss approached. "Caldwell gave Shadow up because he believed in him," she said. "He'd be proud today." Harper unclipped Shadow's lead, the dog pressing close. "Ready to go home, partner?" he asked. Shadow's eyes met his steady and knowing. Justice had been served, not just for Caldwell, but for the bond that had endured beyond death, a bond that proved some loyalties could never be broken.